In order to be able to meet its funding obligations, the Bank of Industry is also reaching out to multilateral development institutions around the world.
AFDB has actually offered us $100 million. We have almost concluded the documentation to enable us, achieve disbursement. And what we're pushing for is that before the end of this year, that money should be disbursed to us. Now, that will be a step in the direction of ensuring that we get funding, from non-government sources. But in addition to that, we are also reaching out to a number of other multilateral development institutions. We've started talking to BNDES of Brazil. We are talking to Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa. We are talking to FMO of Netherlands, and so on and so forth. And we believe that with proper packaging of our SME intervention, we should be able to get positive responses. But that is in the short term. In the long term, what we're planning is that we can actually do a bond issuance. Okay, so, once we've had, consistent performance in terms of, moderate profitability, moderate obligor rating as an entity, we can approach the market and say, hey, we need 5-year loan of 50 billion, 100 billion naira, and we should be able to raise the money. The Industrial Development Bank of South Africa, they have just raised 15 billion rands, which is about roughly $1.5 billion. There's no reason why BOI cannot be elevated to that status.
And since taking over in May this year, you've introduced a couple of initiatives and funds into the system. You've just signed a 13.6 billion pact with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development as intervention funds for rice and cassava milling in the country. You've also introduced the CAP Fund. Tell us more about these funds.
I mentioned earlier that the Nigeria Industrial Revolution Plan identified 4 sectors. From our internal assessment, the most impactful, most wide-ranging in terms of impact of the sectors is the agro-processing sector. Therefore, we are very actively engaged with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. So first, we work with them on the Cassava Bread Fund, under which about 35 companies, were supported, through a combination of loans and grants. And these companies have been able to establish high-quality cassava processing plants, and a number of master bakers were also supported, to be able to use the flour that comes out of the processing plant and use it to bake bread. That has been concluded successfully, and the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Minister, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, is very pleased, with our performance. And that encouraged them to go into the next step, which is the recent 13.6 billion naira MOU that we signed with them about 2 weeks ago to finance 10 medium-sized rice mill, each one capacity of 36,000 metric tons of paddy, and 6 high-quality cassava mills, each one capacity of 18,000 metric tons. The whole idea is we want to fast-track the establishment of these mills in the next few months, such that the cassava that is coming out of the agricultural transformation agenda of Mr. President can get processed, because we don't want to have a situation where we have post-harvest losses. We don't want the cassava to become what they call stick in the ground. So we want all these initiatives to be all related and comprehensive, so that we can actually reduce, the ultimate objective is to reduce food imports. 2 of our institutes in this country have develop technologies that can be used for agro-processing. And interestingly, some of the technologies have been adopted by businesses, and they're actually running very profitably, and they're getting bigger and bigger. One of them is FIRO. FIRO is the Federal Institute of Industrial Research in Oshodi. The second one is Project Development Institute, a place where I went last week. These two institutes, they've developed incredible technologies that Nigerians all need to do is just approach them, and they can get you the equipment you require for cassava, for this, for that. So I think Nigerians, we need to appreciate what we have.
Coming up on BOI Weekly, the CEO speaks to young entrepreneurs trying to access funds, urging them to answer key questions of every business startup.
What are you trying to sell? Who are you going to sell to? What is the target market? What is your value proposition? In other words, what is it about your product or service that will make people patronize you? Because there are so many businesses around. So why should they come to you?
From our experiences on the field, talking to businesses and manufacturers, we do know that some of them want to start businesses. They want to go into an area they do not have the capacity for. They're very passionate. They want to do the business. But the truth is, they're not equipped to do it. How are you helping bridge the gap between passion and really getting business going?
That's a very, very important question. Just last week, I met with a young man in my office. He's been sending me emails, very passionately asking for support about a particular business. And I arranged for one of my general managers to meet with him. And the feedback I got was that he wasn't very serious. But he kept coming back to me, you know, and when I noticed that passion, I said, okay, let him come and have a meeting. And then I invited the general manager also, and we had a meeting, 3 of us. After listening to him for 10 minutes, I had to ask him, you know, young man, I can feel the passion. I can hear the surrounding point, but I don't understand the core of what they're trying to do.
And he's been carrying that for years, maybe.
Yeah, and so I just asked him a question. I said, okay, so what's your business model? He said, what's that? So for me, I knew immediately that we have a problem where people are trying to do business, but they don't understand the rudiment of doing a business. I asked him, do you have a business model canvas? He said, what is that? I said, you know what? This is 2014. You can Google it. Go back. I know you have all the ideas. It's inside of you. It's just not coming out right. When you read it, try to transcribe this your idea onto a one-page business model canvas, and then come back. Like, I think about 6 hours later that evening, he sent me a message that, sir, I have Googled it. I have seen what is a business model canvas. I'm working on it, and I'll be back. I said, great. So one thing we have learned from that is that we are going to have some training sessions with our BDSPs to teach them our business model. You know, these are basic questions. So first, what are you trying to sell? Who are you going to sell to? What is the target market? What is your value proposition? In other words, what is it about your product or service that will make people patronize you?
Now let's talk about some of the challenges your customers face when trying to access funds. Some say the process of requesting for funds is too cumbersome. Others have said that asking them to bring collateral is as good as telling them to go back home and not do business. Some people have even asked what the real difference between the Bank of Industry and the commercial banks are, because if you're asking them for collateral, there is no difference between you, your operations, or the commercial banks.
It's very simple. The Bank of Industry is a development bank. And development banks means we are catalysts. We go to where commercial banks, are trying to avoid.
From you.
Yeah. So I used to be a commercial bank, so I know. But having said that, we all know that in Nigeria, long-term loans don't come by readily. So BOI grants long-term loans, 7 years, in some cases 10 years. Secondly, in terms of the pricing, the interest rate on the loans, clearly our rates are usually about 10%. So if you go to the average commercial bank, you're probably talking 20, 21, 22%. So those are two clear differences between us and the commercial banks. But having said that, in terms of accessing loans from Bank of Industry, what we've tried to do is to create channels, for our customers. So first, you can approach Bank of Industry directly. And, we have our head office in Marina, Lagos. We have Abuja office. We have zonal offices in Asaba, in Enugu, Kaduna, and Bauchi. Now, in addition to that, you can also have an online application. We've just introduced that recently, where you can apply online and then people can contact you to ask follow-up questions. The third arm is through accredited third parties. And so we've just appointed a number of business development service providers, BDSPs. And their role is to work with SMEs to help in, packaging their loan applications so that by the time it gets to Bank of Industry, those applications are bankable. Because our experience has shown that, a lot of the applications that come to us don't meet the standards. We believe that working with these BDSPs who already understand our process, who understand our policy, who understand the criteria, what we're looking for, they can help the SMEs to improve their applications so that the chance of success will be higher. So either you come to us directly, or you go through the online channel, or you apply through the BDSPs. We have so many ways in which we can be reached. But at the end of the day, for Bank of Industry as a development bank to be sustainable, when we grant loans, those loans must be repaid. Because if we grant loans and they are not repaid, before you know it, BOI may become history. So when people talk about, collateral and no collateral, it's important that the loans are well secured and that we have some reasonable assurance that they will be repaid.
Rashid Olaoluwa is the incumbent CEO and Managing Director of the Bank of Industry. A first-class degree holder from the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, with an executive MBA from the International Graduate School of Management, Barcelona. His role in the next couple of years in the nation's industrialization drive could make all the difference. That's our program this week. Thank you for watching.